Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
Why don't you just make the Chiefs your boyfriend? See if we can get the wheels to fall off that train.
There are some flaws there, and you're thinking, first of all, there speaks the man who drafted the greatest quarterback of all time in the 6th round and thinks it happens every week.
Can't go broke taking a profit, right?
But my top defensive guy is a defensive lineman from Miami, Jalen Phillips.
Talking with the other SuperFans, I don't think this is an extremely deep draft as far as like executive vice presidents of football or GMs go.
Even tucked away up here in the southern tip of Alaska, which is what everybody thinks Seattle is.
It's the SuperFan Super Mock Draft. Here we go.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, hold on.
32 SuperFans.
I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
One Pod Vader.
You fired up for that, man? Huh?
Every angle of the NFL covered.
We're on go time. We still on go.
This is Next Fan Up.
We're live, bro.
Hello and welcome to the exciting conclusion, part 3 of the SuperFan Super Mock Draft. I am Pod Vader, and man, we are just having a blast here. Wow, I can't believe we've made it to the end. 22 through 32, plus 3 extra picks at the end. 3 teams that are not in the first round of this year's draft. We're going to talk about them along with our special guests. We have draft analyst Brian Bosarge of DeepFriedDraft.com, and of course, the former NFL general manager Randy Mueller. He'll actually be a little bit more towards the end of this episode, talking a little bit more, definitely a lot about the Houston Texans. So you're going to want to check that out. We've been having fun. Again, remember, this experiment is about who you want your team to select, not what you think is going to happen during the NFL draft. This is what we want to see our teams do on draft weekend. So with that, let's get things going again with pick number 22, Brian Bosarge and me. Let's go. The Tennessee Titans are selecting at number 22, and their selection will be the cornerback from Northwestern, Greg Newsome. Jordan mentions the need to replace speed at cornerback position would target a wide receiver in round 2. And frankly, the way wide receivers have gone in this particular draft, probably a better pick than taking the 5th wide receiver off the board.
Right. If we didn't have the trade up there for Rashad Bateman, I could definitely see him being a potential target here at 22 for the Titans. I could also see them. They seem to be consistently mocked edge rushers in this spot too. Someone like Azeez Ojulari from Georgia. His name's come up here a lot. Russo would be another one I would consider here as well, and maybe even someone like Joseph Osai from Texas. Jalen Phillips, medicals pending and all that. Those are other names for the Titans here. But if we're looking at corner here, Greg Newsome is probably the pick here. His name's been rising a lot in the last few weeks amongst the draft media, and he's a tremendous athlete, great cover skills at Northwestern. So it also fits a need here for the Titans. So if we're looking at a corner here for Tennessee, Greg Newsome is the pick.
At pick number 23, I already mentioned I wasn't a big fan of the Jets doing what they did, but they are picking here again. And if they're going to select a brand new quarterback, then you need to surround him with weapons, and more weapons. And so I have the Jets selecting wide receiver Terrence Marshall from LSU in this spot.
Highly productive receiver at LSU, 4.38 40, tremendous athlete, has produced the last 2 years at LSU. So I think he's going to be a first-round pick, maybe not the pick here to the Jets, but if he is, but I'm in agreement here. Give Zach Wilson a receiver to throw to, and Terrence Marshall would fit that bill. A couple other names that I would like the Jets here because I was a big fan last year of Denzel Mims, the receiver from Baylor. I think he has a chance to be their number one wide receiver for Zach Wilson. But a couple names here that are probably more slot receivers, I think, that would fill that need there. There's Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. He's a guy who I think is going to sneak into the first round possibly, and Kadarius Toney, who I think is projected to go later here in the first round in this mock draft. But those are two guys that if the Jets took them at 23, I wouldn't be shocked either. But I like the pick of Terrence Marshall.
At pick number 24, Buffalo Rob will come in for the Buffalo Bills. He made a trade here with the Pittsburgh Steelers to take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker from Notre Dame. I'm going to talk to Robert in just a little bit, but I can tell you right now, Brian, he is absolutely in love with this kid.
Owusu-Koramoah is going to be your hybrid linebacker safety. He's undersized to be a traditional linebacker, 6'1", 221. Didn't run a 40 at his pro day, but tested well in the other categories, especially his lateral agility. That's why a lot of people think he's a safety, to be honest, and that may be the case. He can rush the passer, proved that while he was at Notre Dame. He's a playmaker, always around the football. But if we're going to draft a pure linebacker here for the Bills, and you're trading up, I think the target would probably be Tulsa's Zaven Collins if the Bills are going to trade up for the linebacker. But I like Owusu-Koramoah. I don't like him in the first round. I think he's more of a top of the second round type value to me. But I can see where some teams are going to be in love with him. And if that is indeed the case with Buffalo and they feel the need that they have to come up and get him, sure.
All right, now that you just made Buffalo Rob's day that much better, let's find out what he has to say for himself. All right, Rob. Well, you just heard both Brian and Randy Mueller question the move to move up for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Not really seeing the fit for your team. What do you have to say to defend this?
I mean, Randy Mueller shouldn't have that long. I mean, it should be in his brief history being from New Orleans, because in Carolina, this same coach, Sean McDermott, had two stud linebackers on his team, Thomas Davis and Kurt Kuechly, and then went out and drafted a linebacker in the first round who was a little bit underweight, but was pretty fantastic at doing some of the coverage stuff in Shaq Thompson, kind of playing that big nickel role. And I really see that's kind of where this fits. That kind of movable chess piece. The Bills are pretty, I don't want to say they're set, but I mean, they have no glaring weakness. For me, my guy was the 15th rated player on my board. We're sitting at 24. I like the fit. And, your first goal is going to be to win the division, right? So let's look at it. The New England Patriots now have two studly tight ends, and they're going to run more of that 12 personnel, probably on a pretty regular basis. So you need to have good coverage linebackers. The Bills already have one in Matt Milano. Now add another one, can kind of stay in more of that base defense and, cause a little bit of problems for that. But it's not just the Patriots. Look no further than this mock draft that we're doing right here. The Miami Dolphins went and took Pitts with the sixth pick. So now they have Pitts and Gesicki. That's another heck of a two tight end tandem. So you're going to have to match up against that. And the coaches in New York, the New York Jets, are running the same offense that they ran in San Francisco. And I know they had George Kittle in San Francisco, but even when he wasn't available, they were running a lot of two tight end sets. They were getting their tight ends involved. They went out and signed a tight end. They already have a good pass catching tight end in Chris Herndon, who, by the way, was woefully underused by Adam Gase. Shock. Now you have another team that I think is going to feature the tight end a little bit more prominently. And the Bills were one of the worst teams in the league in defending the tight end last year, probably mostly because Matt Milano's injury. But now you really shore that up. You're able to play that big nickel and gives you a little bit more flexibility from a defense and game calling standpoint.
So I will give away the spoiler here. There's going to be a run on linebackers. You have your choice of maybe a more traditional linebacker in Zaven Collins out of Tulsa, or the guy that's running up everybody's boards in Jamin Davis. Any thoughts on those guys?
No, I think the fit is, I know I could see, the question from just like what the Bills play, but they play a big nickel, sometimes pretty regularly. And now you have a legit one. I mean, they were doing it with, cast-off guys the past couple of years. Now you have someone who, can play that role, could go and, be kind of like the third safety and could go out and, cover on the slot if need be. I mean, this is a guy who was covering cornerbacks in college, even out on or covering wide receivers out in college, even out in the boundary. I think this is a perfect fit for a creative defensive coordinator, and a defense that likes to get creative, likes to game plan for specifics on against the team that they're going against offensively. I love the fit. I hope he somehow ends up with us.
All right. So how about in the later rounds? What are you planning on doing? What was the draft capital you had to give up to move up here?
So I'm in my car, so I don't have a computer in front of me to look at it, but it was my third round pick to Pittsburgh, and then I got back a pick in 2022. I think I got back a fourth rounder. Okay.
So you didn't lose much in regards to draft capital. So what other spots are you looking at? I mean, I got to say, if your team wasn't in my division, you're probably looking at the boyfriends of 2021, but there's no way in the world I will allow myself to root for another AFC East team.
I mean, it's really like you could go so many different ways with the Bills. They could look long term and maybe find a developmental, defensive end, to groom up because theirs are a little bit older. They could go cornerback. That was a position. I actually had a deal in place to move up earlier, but I got sniped by Arizona to get the cornerback that I like. Although maybe the injury history that he has, maybe he's helping me. You could look at a wide receiver. I think maybe a little trade back. I think a wide receiver like an Elijah Moore really fits more long term. He's kind of like a mix almost between Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. A good separator, is someone that you could play in the slot in the future, but in the interim, you could play outside on the boundary a little bit. And I think he's someone that you could, is a real good separator, really, which the Bills, that's what they tend to go for in their wide receivers, is more so those separator type guys. So I think he's a perfect fit for what the Bills are trying to do. There's a ton of different ways you can go. I think one technique on the defensive line is something that they're going to look for a little bit later. I don't know if they go into the second or third round and maybe, his name's slipping my mind, Shelvin. The one tech Shelvin, the big boy, he's about 360. They could go that way. Really, they're in a position where they could just go best player available. Case in point, and one of the last picks in the second round in our little mock that we continue after the first round, I was able to get Javonte Williams from UNC. Do we really need a running back? Not particularly, but man, he's better than what we have, and he was by far the best player on the board, so we took him because we have no real needs.
What is it with you super fans giving away spoilers to the later rounds? How dare you?
Oh, is this the year we're going to do the second through fourth round superfan conversation on the pod? I'm ready.
No, this show is going to be long enough as it is. All right, Rob, thanks for jumping on. Good luck to you. Well, I can't even wish you good luck. Like that goes against everything in my being. At pick number 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars come in with their second first-round choice, and I selected for them Jamin Davis, linebacker from Kentucky. His stock has been rising drastically over the last few weeks, and I just feel if anybody has any idea of what this kid really is going to be, it's going to be the new staff that just came from the college ranks in Jacksonville.
Jamin Davis is ascending, like you said, and it's almost at this point now it would be a surprise if he didn't go in the first round. You're looking at a 6'3", 234-pound linebacker that runs 4.49 in his pro day, 42-inch vertical jump, 11-foot broad jump. I don't have to tell you how ridiculous that is. I mean, it's crazy for a guy that size. He's my number 2 ranked linebacker behind Micah Parsons. I can see him going in the first round. I'm not a fan of Jacksonville doing it here. Not that I don't think that he would be a starter there for them, because he would. But I'm like we said with Zach Wilson and the Jets, I'm on team. Give Trevor Lawrence somebody to throw to, or somebody to block for him. I could see an offensive tackle with Cam Robinson being on the franchise tag. You basically got him on a 1-year deal, so you could be looking to replace him next year. So I could see drafting an offensive tackle there, moving them inside the guard for a year, and then moving them back out. Someone like Samuel Cosme or Christian Darrisaw still on the board here. Kevin Jenkins still on the board here. So I could see those being probably better picks for Jacksonville. I've seen tight ends being mocked here a couple times. People like Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. I'm not as big on Freiermuth as others, but I think maybe even wide receiver. I'm not ruling that out as well. But in my last mock draft, I actually mocked Travis Etienne to Jacksonville with this pick, just for the comfort factor for Trevor Lawrence. Give him his teammate to run with there. Despite James Robinson having a great rookie season last year, I think Etienne can add more to their passing game than just a traditional running back. So he's just another guy that they could target here. But like I said, Jamin Davis is the pick. He's a great super athlete, great player.
Run on linebacker will continue here at pick 26, where the Cleveland Browns are going to select Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa. Now, I made this choice here for the Browns. I've seen him linked to my Patriots, but I looked at his size and said he ain't a Belichick guy. That said, love his tape, love his motor. Would have gone with a cornerback, but felt it was too early to go with some of those later round cornerback types in this particular spot.
Edge rusher was another possibility here, but they're technically not set at edge rusher because you only have Takk McKinley and Jadeveon Clowney on 1-year contracts. So, you only have them for the 1 year. But corner, the Browns probably have one of the deepest rosters in the league, if we're being honest here. And I think that the Browns are a prime candidate to be one of the teams that trade up because they have 9 draft picks. 9 draft picks ain't making that team. I mean, that's just facts. So I think they could be a team that could be maybe not in the first round, maybe they move up in the second round, maybe they move up in the third. But some of those late round picks they're going to trade in various moves on draft day. Zaven Collins, I think, would be a great pick here for Cleveland. They can upgrade their linebacker spot with him. I do think corner is probably their biggest upgrade position they could do here. If Greg Newsome were to fall, I think he would be a great pick here. I actually had them trading up for Greg Newsome in my last mock draft. I think another name that's not getting a whole lot of first-round love, but I think could be a great pick for the Browns is Ifeatu Melifonwu, the corner from Syracuse, 6'2", 205, 32-inch arms, 4'4", 840, 11-foot broad. I mean, just tremendous athlete. Had a great week at the Senior Bowl. He's a guy I like to the Browns at that spot. Asante Samuel Jr. from Florida State's another that you could see them going with at 26. But if they stick with linebacker, Zaven Collins is, an upgrade for them.
All right, pick 27 is the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens will select Jalen Phillips, defensive end from Miami. This pick was made by Don.
If the Ravens clear his medicals, if Jalen Phillips is healthy, Jalen Phillips is the first defensive player taken in this draft, without a doubt. I mean, that's how good he is as a pass rusher. The thing is, he's had multiple injuries. I've got them listed here, and I'll just run through them right quick. Severe wrist damage as a result of a moped accident. He's had sprains of both ankles and 3 separate concussions, the last of which forced him to medically retire from UCLA. He sat out a year, transferred to Miami, had a great year this year, double-digit sacks. I mean, he's a hell of a player, no doubt about it. But it's medicals with him. I mean, is he one concussion away from being done? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not one of these 32 team doctors, but I would be willing to bet money that at least 50% of the NFL teams that are drafting do not have him on their board.
Well, let's see what Don was thinking when he made the selection. Well, Don, you here at Pick 27 have selected Randy Mueller's favorite defensive end. He says is probably one of the best defensive players in this draft in Jalen Phillips. I don't know if that makes you feel good or bad about the pick, but you got to feel pretty good if the draft falls in this manner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way the board was falling, all the top receivers were gone. If one of the top tier receivers somehow was at 27, that's probably the direction I'm going to go on with. But I mean, obviously the Ravens have had a lot of departures at defensive end and outside linebacker, and not a lot of bodies or talent behind him. So I know we still need playmakers for Lamar, and I think they will get them later on in the draft. Rounds 2 and 3 and 4 maybe. But now we need to get an impact pass rusher, which we have not had in quite some time.
Talk to me a little bit about your offense and Lamar Jackson in particular. I suppose, would you say Lamar took a step backwards, or was it sort of a sideways step?
I guess it more towards sideways. As dynamic as he is, I mean, if this past Super Bowl taught us anything, is that quarterback, as great as they are, they can't do it by themselves. They got to have help, and it starts up front. I mean, obviously, they're made some improvements already in the offensive line in the offseason, but I think they get at least another young guard or center in there, and Orlando Brown's tenure with the team is always a question mark now too. We'll see. I'd rather him not get traded, but we'll see how much of a stink he makes as the offseason continues. A dynamic receiver that we've been able to draft ourselves and develop. It just never happened in 25 years of the Ravens. We complain about the passing offense. We complain, the 32nd in the league and all this stuff. And you got to give him help besides Mark Andrews and, a good last 8 games from Hollywood Brown. He's got to have more help than that. And the guys they have, as much as Eric DeCosta wants to say, oh, we've got some good young players. So, well, if they're so good, why weren't they getting more snaps and why weren't they on the field more? I mean, I don't believe they. I don't care what he says. They're bringing in some talent one way or another for him.
Your defense is always strong, and you're obviously taking a defensive player here. But it looks like your linebacking core doesn't have a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, definitely, especially outside. I mean, they re-signed Tyus Bowser, who had a very good year, happened to be his contract year. But
that was the guy I wanted. I mean, I'm happy that Matthew Judon came to New England, but Tyus Bowser was the guy I had my eye on.
Yeah, I mean, Judon is a very solid player. I mean, you've seen him enough on the Ravens, but there's nothing he does really, he's not outstanding at anything. He's just really good really solid at a lot of different things, especially in the run game. I mean, he's not going to be he's never had a double-digit sack season, he's had some help around him, even before last year, to take the focus off of him, but he's just not that guy. But he's a good, solid player. So, Yannick Ngakoue, that trade ended up being a bust, which was surprising. I thought you bring at least something to the table instead of just being invisible for the most part. But yeah, middle linebacker, they'll have Patrick Queen. They were able to bring back LJ Fort, who's been pretty solid for him at middle linebacker. But they need to get some more time out of guys like Malik Harrison. And he was a 3rd or 4th round middle linebacker last year. He didn't play a ton. So yeah, it's not a lot of depth there. So I definitely see at least, someone like a Justin Houston type or someone like that getting signed after the draft for some depth and some time. But yeah, they definitely could make some improvements there.
Any other positions that you want to try to address later on?
I mean, a lot of prognosticators keep thinking they're going to go safety. Because it's, they've had Deshaun Elliott there. They've had safeties are decent, but they're not game changing safeties. They're not going to be picking off a lot of passes and that sort of stuff. Don't be surprised if they go safety, maybe 3rd or 4th round.
At pick number 28, the New Orleans Saints are up. Chris will make the selection of edge rusher Azeez Ojulari. He says best player available pick, still really need a defensive back for the New Orleans Saints.
And I agree with where he's going here by saying they really need a defensive back. Ojulari doesn't fit the Saints' typical defensive end size. He's more of a he's a stand-up edge rusher probably. They like their guys a little bigger, like Marcus Davenport, who hasn't really been that great since they traded up for him a couple of years ago. They just lost Trey Hendrickson in free agency. Cam Jordan, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Azeez Ojulari does not, at his size of, 6'2", 249, doesn't fit that mold per se of what the Saints would look for. Corner, I think, is a spot that they could look at here if they're going to stay. But if you told me to bet money on one team that would trade completely out of the first round, I'm going to say it's the New Orleans Saints, because their salary cap situation is just awful. I mean, I don't even know if they could afford to pay their first round pick based off the amount of money they have in their salary cap right now. The Saints currently have like 8 or 9 picks in this year's class. I could see them trading out of the first round and getting into that maybe upper to mid portion of round 2. And I think a quarterback, maybe the 6th quarterback taken could be the Saints' target if they trade out of round 1. Because they're looking at a future now of Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston at quarterback, or either one of them in the future. I can't see that being the case. Maybe a trade out of the first round and target of someone like Davis Mills from Stanford. I hear his name a lot, moving up the boards. I'm not a fan of Kyle Trask. I think he would be successful in a Sean Payton offense if given the chance. But I think those are targets outside of the first round. If the Saints stay put, I think you're looking at a corner here, or maybe even a slot wide receiver.
All right, Chris, the Saints select edge rusher from Georgia, Azeez Ojulari. You wrote best player available pick. Still really need a defensive back.
Yes, absolutely, and desperately. The Saints, it's been a long time since the Saints have gone into a draft with such a glaring hole like they have this year. They don't have a number 2 corner. There's a lot of talk about Richard Sherman. It's not the answer. So they really have to address that, and linebacker's a pretty big weakness too with letting Quan Alexander go. So, but with that being said, Azeez Ojulari is, on many boards, the top edge rusher in the class. Super talented kid, offers speed off the edge, which the Saints haven't had in a long time. So it was one of those things where you just got to take a good football player and see what happens in the second round.
You already answered a lot of my questions there. How about quarterback? You seem to have a spot maybe there at the quarterback position.
I mean, who are you going to take at 28 that's going to challenge either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston? On our draft, you had Kyle Trask, you had Davis Mills. Neither one of them, and Kellen Mond, I guess, would be the third one. None of them are considered day one starters. None of them are considered first-round picks. So I'm not the biggest Jameis Winston fan, not because of his antics on the field, but his antics off. And Taysom Hill, love him or hate him, he was 3-1 last year. So I think the best approach right now is to build a team around what you have, see what you have, and then go into next year. That could completely change if a Justin Fields falls and you could trade up and get him. Absolutely, go do that. But with what's available at the board, what I picked, it didn't seem like the logical option.
What are your thoughts for the later rounds for your team?
Man, they have to get a corner, and they have to get a corner immediately. So with how our draft fell out, packaging some picks, whether it be one or both thirds even in the third round, to move up in the second to get somebody like a Tyson Campbell or if you have to Belafanu, somebody of that nature would be great. But they have to address it. They can't just ignore that position any longer. Other options, if they can, take care of that in the second round. I like Jabril Cox a lot at weak side linebacker. And then there's a handful of defensive line and offensive line prospects that could fall to the third and fourth round that should be good value.
All right, Chris. Well, congrats on the pick, and we'll talk some more down the road.
Awesome. I appreciate it, buddy.
At pick number 29, the Green Bay Packers, in what should be a no-brainer, will select offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw. Green Bay Brian made the selection. No truth to the rumor that he was considering another quarterback or another running back.
We've got to help Aaron Rodgers here. I mean, that pick last year was so dumb. They should have taken a receiver or tight end or anything, basically to give Rodgers a weapon. Upgrading the offensive line, Darrisaw's nasty. I mean, he's a great blocker down the field in pass protection. I think he's really good. I would like this pick for Green Bay. I also wouldn't mind seeing them, go with someone like a Kadarius Toney or, one of the other slot wide receivers like Elijah Moore to help him out. But yeah, give Rodgers some help.
Let's see what Brian has to say. And so Brian does, in fact, join us now to talk about his selection of Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle. Now, Brian, to me, I would think that you'd be ecstatic. This is a position of need for the Packers, and it is not another quarterback or running back.
That's very true. I'm way more ecstatic about this pick than I would be if we had taken either a quarterback or a running back. Look, Christian Darrisaw, great player, not a sexy pick. I'm no draft expert, especially along the offensive line, but based on the rankings of the draft industrial complex, he seemed to be the best player available for the Packers at 29. I think I saw him as high as 12th overall, the 12th overall prospect on some big boards, so I feel good about getting him where I did. You mentioned the fit. I think his size and movement skills should mesh really well with Matt LaFleur's zone scheme. I think the need is a little bit understated. He should be able to fill in immediately along the offensive line since David Bakhtiari, in all likelihood, won't be able to play until at least mid-year as he recovers from a late-season ACL tear. I figure Green Bay can take a look at all of our options along the offensive line during camp and decide whether it's better to play Darrisaw at left tackle or right tackle. And then when Bakhtiari's back, he can slide right into that right tackle position, and we can kick Billy Turner inside, which should essentially make us better at two positions. So that's kind of the rationale for the pick anyway.
I think it's good rationale. So you said it's not sexy. What did you want for a sexy pick here?
Well, my dream scenario would have been Rashad Bateman dropping to us. I think our wide receivers are fine, but I just like his talent and seems like he'd be a really good fit. I think he's a little bit underappreciated. I think that first trio of wide receivers gets all the headlines when I think Bateman is also maybe not quite a full notch below them, but maybe half a notch. I also like Zayvon Collins quite a bit, but he went a pick or two ahead of me. Either one of those guys I think is more of a luxury pick for Green Bay, given the team's talent and needs. So yeah, those are some of the guys that I wish had fallen to me. Other guys that I considered though, another Christian Barmore along the interior D line. I thought hard about Asante Samuel. I thought a little bit about Rondale Moore. I'm a UW Whitewater alum, so I'm contractually obligated to take the mighty Quinn Meinerz if he's available. But I just sort of thought, that's a little rich even for super fan blood. So I'm holding out hope that he's available for me in round 2.
Everybody wants Quinn.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their eyes on Quinn. and I do worry that because everybody's got their eyes on Quinn, he might go here in the first round at some point in real life. But I don't know. But everybody definitely wants Quinn. He is the talk of the offensive lineman.
Yeah, easy to root for, especially given that he goes to a small school in Wisconsin that I also attended. So, yeah, totally biased. He could stink on ice and I'd still want him. But the fact that he doesn't, it makes me want him even more. I will say in the real draft, I think this could be a year we see Green Bay end up trading back a little bit. The Packers are all in for this year, any way you want to try and slice it. And I think we're going to be paying for all this salary cap gymnastics for the next few years. Everybody knows that's not how the Packers do business. They are a pay-as-you-go team. I think it's more than likely that this year we start to see them get back to their roots and see that pendulum swing back hard toward the draft and develop philosophy, starting as early as this draft. So that's just as I put on my Brian Gutekunst's cap. I think that's probably how we'll see things play out.
I'm not a big believer in NFL draft rumors, especially a week before the NFL draft. I'll drop one on you though here, Brian. You mentioned trade back. What about trade up? How about Jordan Love, this pick for my number 15 of the New England Patriots?
I did also see that rumor. I got really mixed emotions about it. On the one hand, I don't know that anybody expected Aaron Rodgers to come in and play at an MVP level again. Obviously glad that he did. That changes things, I think, for the Green Bay Packers, now that we have seen that. So that's the reason why I would consider it. I think the reason why I'm still a little bit hesitant is that, Rodgers isn't going to play forever. At some point, we need to make the decision. This doesn't solve that problem, trading up to pick somebody. I can't imagine we trade up and then pick another quarterback. We can see that if we really wanted to piss off Aaron Rodgers. But I just think that we drafted Love last year. You can like it or dislike it. I disliked it at the time. I disliked it strongly. I've gotten a little bit more philosophical about it. I think when we drafted him, we knew he was a project. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that 1 year in a COVID year without a normal training camp and, him playing third string behind Tim Boyle, laser show. I just don't think that anyone should be too critical of him at this point. I think if we don't see the lights come on this year, then I think I'm starting to panic, and I think it's going to be time to start thinking about making a trade like that. But I think that's the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to make the deal. I could easily be swayed, though, depending on how the draft board fell. If there's still one of those big three wide receivers sitting there at 15, I would be all over that. I think that's just kind of how I process these things. Is it's hard to make that choice in a vacuum, and it's not a choice that we would really probably see before the Patriots are on the clock at 15. But if the move does happen, I would be excited. If it doesn't happen, I will understand why.
I'm not excited about it. I don't see Jordan Love as the answer to my quarterback problems. But do I like Jordan Love better than the other options in front of me? It's a good question that I just asked myself. Not sure. I would love it if it was Aaron Rodgers. I'll take Aaron Rodgers off your hands. How about that?
Talk to me next year. I think that'll be it's kind of we have some decisions to make after this year. I think he'll be back regardless, unless we take a quarterback. If we take a quarterback, I think he could easily just say, "Screw you guys, I'm going home." But next year, obviously, a lot depends on Love's development. I think that's the part of the equation that doesn't get talked about much is, if Rodgers comes out and plays the way that he did, and we don't see any progression from Love, then it's an easy choice. If Rodgers comes out and takes a step back, we see a little bit of a step forward from Love. I think we probably still hang on to Rodgers for a year. If Rodgers takes a big step back or has a season-ending injury, or we see a big step forward from Love, then I think we're probably going to be looking to deal him. And that's just the nature of the NFL in 2021.
You've mentioned wide receiver a couple of times. I don't understand why everyone hates Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Alan Lazard so much, but okay, sure. I'll go along with the flow. So wide receiver still going to be a position you're looking at here later?
I think so, in part because, and this ties back in with the Love pick, I think in a big way that's going to be the pick that makes or breaks Brian Gutekunst as a GM. Right or wrong, I just think that's how people will perceive it. So I expect that he is going to shower offensive weapons, protectors to make sure that pick hits. He's got a vested interest in making sure that happens. Packers don't have any wide receivers under contract after this year. I think like Reggie Bagleton, bottom of the barrel, practice squad guy. I think we've got Alan Lazard as a restricted free agent, but everybody else's contract is up next year. And we obviously are not going to be bringing everybody back given the cap situation. I don't anticipate Devontae Adams is going anywhere. Worst case scenario, we franchise take him and try to put a longer term deal together. But it's going to be a position that we need to address at some point. And if we can get one of those top tier guys or a Rondale Moore, then I am interested. Otherwise, it wouldn't shock me if we, pick other premium positions early, talking edge defenders, offensive linemen, corners, and try to load up on 2 or 3 wide receivers in the mid to late rounds, would be my guess.
Now at pick number 30, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who traded back to this spot, will select a running back from Clemson, Travis Etienne. Running back, clearly a position of need here for the Steelers.
Oh, it is, and like I said, my preference for Etienne is above that of Najee Harris. If Etienne, you're going to trade back to Buffalo, I didn't see the details of the trade here of what Pittsburgh would have required, but getting extra picks to move back 6 spots and draft a guy you could have potentially picked at 24 is it's good value for Pittsburgh here. Even selecting the back in the first round. But I like Etienne. I love that you can flex him out wide. It just gives the offensive coordinator more options. He probably isn't the traditional running back that Pittsburgh would normally have back there. But I could also see Javonte Williams from North Carolina being a running back drafted ahead of Etienne as well, if that is how it goes. Offensive tackle could be in play here for Pittsburgh as well, someone like Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosme. But trade back here, Etienne, I like the pick because I love Travis Etienne. He's overall, he's my number 15 overall player in his draft class. So I'm a fan.
It's good value here. Let's talk to Greg. All right, Greg, as the forced to be Pittsburgh Steelers superfan, you got a knock on the door from Buffalo Rob, and you took the deal. What was the deal? Because you failed to put the what the deal was in the notes.
Well, for my side, I got an extra 3rd this year. I think I gave up a 4th next year in exchange, and I moved back 5 or 6 spots. So I'm pretty happy with the movement, dropping from 24 to 30 and getting an extra 3rd for this year.
You selected Travis Etienne. Was he the running back, or were you a little upset that Najee Harris went maybe a little bit too early in our mock draft?
I mean, he did go really early, and strange enough, Buffalo Rob keeps telling me that's my pick. So when he went off the board, I was like, okay, what do I do? It's really just the ugliest pig or the prettiest pig that was left. I wasn't excited with anyone. I was really excited about getting the extra 3rd. So, I mean, running back, tight end, offensive tackle, if they draft a guy at any one of those positions, there'll be a plug-and-play starter, hopefully. And I thought at this point in the draft, the running back was the best value. And that seems to be what everyone's mocking to my Steelers.
So you don't come from the never draft a quarterback in the first round camp, huh?
Well, it's worked out the couple times I've done it. I mean, I'm accepting that Rashad Mendenhall is a success story, so it's a pretty low threshold here. But if they get us through this next year, the Steelers are in a unique cap situation where they can basically reset their entire roster in 2022. After this final voyage with Ben Roethlisberger. So, it's win-win-win, and we'll worry about next year.
So this is the final voyage of the good ship Roethlisberger?
I mean, who knows? I mean, when he was coming off his first Super Bowl win and he got in that horrible car accident when he was on a motorcycle, I didn't expect him to play past 30. So every year is gravy at this point, but he's got to fall apart at some point, right? So...
I don't know. We've said the same thing about Brady. He seems to be going just fine.
They have slightly different lifestyles. That's for
sure. What other positions are you looking at to fill on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm definitely looking for a center in the later rounds, and that's why the extra 3rd really comes in handy for me. I also could use a tight end and an offensive tackle. We could definitely use a starter of the future at left tackle. And then because Bud Dupree left, Mike Hilton left, and we cut Steven Nelson, we could really use an edge and a couple cornerbacks. So, when you start filling up 6 or 7 needs, that's your entire draft class pretty much.
All right. Well, congratulations on your choice. I'm sure it'll do just fine. I mean, I can imagine Travis Etienne in the Steelers offense is going to be a big threat, quite honestly. I don't think you'll be unhappy with that selection.
I won't be unhappy with it till 2024, right? So,
right,
the James
exactly.
Conner. So,
at pick number 31, the Chicago Bears traded back here with the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Bears will select wide receiver from Florida, Kadarius Toney. Tom was really thinking like a GM here. As he said, traded back because the Bears don't have a 4th-round pick, and I had a cloud of about 5 guys that I was willing to take at 20. Toney was one of them. We'll take a quarterback on day 2.
I love the logic there from Tom and what he come up with there. You're basically, you've said that you're trying to move on from Anthony Miller, a receiver they drafted traded up for in the 2nd round a few years ago from Memphis that I really like coming out. Don't know if he's really gotten much of a shake there in Chicago, but so be it. You'd essentially be replacing him with Kadarius Toney here, who was uncoverable at Senior Bowl practices all week. His ability out of the slot is tremendous, and to be honest, he's probably got a much better arm, maybe even more accurate arm than Andy Dalton does. So maybe we line him up at quarterback too for some trick plays. But Toney can throw the ball 70 yards easy in the air. He was a high school quarterback. Played right here in my hometown in high school, so I've seen him play for a while. I like Kadarius Toney, great speed. Would be an asset for Chicago, and getting a quarterback on day 2. Yeah, you probably need one. Like I said, I mentioned a couple of guys earlier: Davis Mills, Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond's a guy you mentioned earlier. These are guys that probably not guys are guaranteed to be good in the NFL, but guys that you can take a chance on here with little draft capital.
All right, Tom. So the Chicago Bears ended up trading down. Before we get into your pick, Trey Lance falls in our scenario to number 19 to the Washington football team. You are another team that is perhaps on the lookout for a franchise quarterback. Now, Neil and I have already had our conversation about drafting quarterbacks. I'm not a believer in any of the other 4 guys other than Trevor Lawrence, so I believe that my 1st-round draft choice has to be contributor this year. I don't know what side you fall on this, but I can tell you, Randy Mueller also thinks that this might have been a spot where the Chicago Bears could have traded up to grab Trey Lance if this, in fact, is the situation that bears itself out during the actual NFL draft. What say you?
I did have an opportunity to trade up a couple times. Our Giants rep, Jared, reached out to me in particular. I have to tell you, I'm just about beyond taking quarterbacks that haven't played enough in college, if you know what I mean. The Bears' experience with that hasn't been great. And I know this guy is super talented, but he is a super risk. And I'm not going to say, let's put it this way. Had he made it to 20, and I actually thought he was going to for a while, I probably would have taken him, but there was no way I was going to give up anything else, take a risk on that guy. It was just too big a risk with a first-round pick. Now, Neil, our Washington rep, was trying to trade out of that pick, and he made that very public. At that point, I thought, well, he doesn't want Trey Lance, so I thought he was going to trade out of it. And I thought, I'll just sit where I am, and if the guy falls in my lap, that's great. If Neil takes him, that's great too, because to tell you the truth, it's probably a risk I didn't want to take. If I'm going to pick a risky quarterback, I might as well do it in the 2nd round. So I decided if he fell to me, okay, I'd probably go ahead and take the risk and take him. But if he didn't make it all the way, it wasn't going to be a big deal to me because I wasn't a super believer in him. How could you be? You haven't seen enough of him. I mean, how could you make that judgment?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
So I decided to take the best player available at some other position of need, and I would take my quarterback in the second or third round. And for those who don't know, our draft has continued, and I took one in the second. I took Kellen Mond, who I was perfectly fine with. He was my sixth quarterback.
Wow, and you took him late in the second round, too.
I did.
Again, a second superfan giving away second round spoilers. We haven't even given your first round. Yeah. We haven't even talked about your first round selection yet.
Sorry about that.
Let's go back. Let's go back to the trade. So you decided you weren't trading up. You didn't see the value there. You weren't going to take that risk. In comes the Kansas City Chiefs. And you said, oh, sure, why not? So talk to me about the trade, and then talk to me about taking Kadarius Toney here.
Okay, I had about 5 guys that I thought I could take at number 20. And I wasn't really sold on any of them. Had I stayed there, I probably would have taken Greg Newsome. The Bears need cornerback, they need wide receiver. They arguably need offensive tackle. Everybody thinks they need offensive tackle, I think, except the Bears. So I was looking at a bunch of guys. I had Rashad Bateman in mind. I would have probably taken Greg Newsome. Terrence Marshall was a possibility, and Kadarius Toney was a possibility. Tevin Jenkins was a possibility. Christian Darrisaw, you know where I'm going. Right. So I had a bunch of guys I thought were okay at that pick. I wasn't thrilled about any of them, and frankly, I didn't feel strongly about any of them. And Nick wanted to trade up. The Bears don't have a 4th-round pick this year, and it's always nice to put another pick in the bank. He offered a second for next year, and I took it because I thought it was worthwhile, and I figured the odds were that I'd get somebody that I felt perfectly fine with at number 31. So that's what I did.
By the way, this is what is called being a smart general manager. Acquire more capital, especially when the player you don't want isn't on the board. And quite honestly, it's probably where I made my mistake as the Patriots general manager, taking the linebacker whom, yeah, I've seen Micah Parsons sort of going to the Patriots a lot, but I'm not 100% sold that that's the one guy that's going to make a big difference for my team. Of course, I still have major quarterback questions, but that's a completely different story. So I should have traded back. I should have called you. I should have said, hey, this quarterback is still on the board. You want him? And I'm kind of hoping that will happen in the actual draft, that while Patriot fans are not happy when they see the Patriots trade backwards, I'm hoping that that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a quarterback that falls. They don't love him, and they trade back. That's why I love what you said. Neil was wrong once again. It's fantastic.
Well, I have to think, and I could be wrong, but the Alabama connection makes me think that Bill Belichick might be hoping Mac Jones falls to you guys. But if it's not him, I don't know what they would do. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what all those teams up there do. And it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do, because I don't think Ryan Pace shares my philosophy on trading back and letting somebody fall to you. He usually falls in love with someone and then pays whatever he has to get there. So we'll find out what he does. He's far more aggressive. So we'll find out. I haven't really announced my pick yet, but I did take Kadarius Toney at that spot. I do like him. He's got what they call rubber joints in pretty much every scouting report I've looked at. That's the way they describe it. He is extremely quick. A lot of people think he's going to be a slot receiver. He's about 6 feet tall, so he's not especially tall, and he's very quick. I think slot receiver is his floor, and that was okay with me. I thought, that's good. We'll take him at number 31, and if that's his floor, we'll have a guy who's still going to be, a good starter for a while. And he also would make a very good punt returner, but in particular, the Bears need a kick returner, and I would never take a first rounder because I thought they were going to be a kick returner, but as it happens, he could be a pretty good one. So that might be another reason why he'd be a good pick there.
Plus, Andy Dalton hasn't seen a slot receiver he doesn't like.
Yep. Yeah, you're telling me.
Awesome. All right, Tom.
Looking forward to an awesome season with the red rifle at the helm.
Red, white, and black. That's your quarterback. There you go. Perfect. All right. Tom, thanks so much. You already let people know that it may not be the Red Rifle. It could be Kellen Mond. We shall see. And so we've made it to the end of the first round here at pick number 32. And that selection by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, will be offensive tackle from Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins. Stop me if you heard this before, Brian, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of the first teams to ever bring back all 22 starters after a Super Bowl victory.
So you're essentially telling me that they have no needs here, immediate needs here. So this is a draft and stash type player. And you hit a home run last year with Tristan Wirfs in the first round. He was all pro as a rookie out of Iowa last year. So Donovan Smith is still the starting left tackle, if I'm not mistaken. So you're telling me that either Wirfs or Jenkins would eventually move to the left side, and you're replacing Donovan Smith with this pick. I think with basically what I could see here happening with Tampa is they're going to need to get a player that can have some sort of instant impact this year, maybe not as a starter, but have some impact. And so far, I have not seen the name of Christian Barmore, the interior defensive lineman from Alabama, be drafted. As a matter of fact, there were no defensive linemen selected in the first round of this mock draft here. Christian Barmore is easily going to be the top interior defensive lineman in this class, and probably going to be the only one selected in the first round. And if he's still available at 32, I think that's probably where Tampa Bay could get some year one impact as a sub down pass rusher from the inside with someone like Barmore. Tevin Jenkins to me would just be, I don't know, you got a 44-year-old quarterback and everybody else is old on that team already. I think you're still in win now mode. I think you want to get a guy that's going to help you win this year.
I can tell you that I had Christian Barmore set as the official pick if Matt hadn't made this choice. All right, Brian, that brought us to the end of the first round. However, there were three teams that we did not discuss, and I'd love to bring them up here with you ever so briefly, if you don't mind. The Seattle Seahawks, Los Angeles Rams, and the Houston Texans in our mock draft do not have a first-round draft selection. The Seahawks' next pick would be 56. Well, their first pick, really, from what I can see, if I'm correct. Yes. The Seattle Seahawks will select at 56. Who are some viable options for them that late in the second round?
I mean, you have to, at this point, hope that some of these other offensive tackles or interior linemen maybe slip into that area or as a possibility. Maybe they take a chance on, a potential developmental guy at, say, offensive tackle. A guy I like for them there is Spencer Brown from Northern Iowa, 6'8", 314 pounds, runs a 4.9 440, but that's not the most ridiculous thing he did at his pro day here. He had a 3-cone of a 6.96. I don't know that I've ever seen an offensive tackle go sub 7 seconds in a 3-cone, and he did it at 6'8", 314. Unreal athleticism. At MathBomb on Twitter, relativeathleticscores.com, he graded his athletic testing of Spencer Brown as the highest of any offensive tackle since 1987. If you're going to take a chance on a player that's probably going to be available at pick 56, and you're someone like Seattle, you could do a lot worse than taking a gamble on that kind of athleticism.
All right, let's see what Justin has to say. All right, Justin, only 3 superfans without a first-round pick this year, and you are the first because you have the first pick out of the 3. It's number 56 in the second round. So what are you planning on doing?
Yeah, obviously the situation sucks because the Seahawks don't have any picks hardly in the draft. They don't have any money, and so very limited in options. I would love to trade back here, but it's a later second round pick. I'm not going to get a lot of quality for this. So all I can do is look at my draft board and pick somebody that I think can help the team and is a upgrade for the Seahawks. So with that being said, I looked at my draft board, looked at my couple of best players available at this position, and a guy I really like is the center, Quinn Miners. He's a small school guy who played, I believe, Division III, but had a fantastic college career there. Obviously, the concern with that is always going to be, does he have the ability to step up against upper competition? He dominated the Senior Bowl against Division I competition. So I love this guy. I think at this point, you just have to, if you're the Seahawks, you just take it on the chin and you just take the picks you have and try and grab some guys and try and get some hits. So, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, you have the guy everybody wants. And I mean, ever since this guy showed up at the Senior Bowl and just dominated at the Senior Bowl, I mean, this is the only small school kid who is going to benefit. That's what the Senior Bowl is supposed to do. It's supposed to showcase some of these guys that you don't normally get a chance to see. And unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of these small school guys aren't going to get that chance, at least this year, and probably won't get that chance until after they get to compete in the XFL. Does that start this year or is that next year?
Oh, who knows, man?
I think it's next year.
What a weird zombie that is that keeps coming back from the dead. But you're totally right. This is the pick that I feel like a lot of GMs pretend they get every year, where they're like, oh man, we picked this guy, and then every GM in the league called me and was like, oh, that was my guy. This is everybody's like hidden gem, which makes it not a hidden gem because everybody wanted this guy. But I think everybody thought that nobody else paid attention, I guess, and realized that this guy had all the physical ability, showed against good competition at the Senior Bowl that he could compete. And frankly, because he comes from a small school, probably has a lot of growth potential too, in his technique, at least. Just one of those weird picks where everybody's like, I had that guy. You got my guy. You should have picked him earlier, jerks.
Where else are you looking to fill holes? I mean, you looking at a running back?
No, I mean, the Seahawks did just extend Chris Carson. They do still have, I mean, if they had a first-round pick, they probably would waste another first-round pick on a running back and not ever have him see the field because that is the Seahawks way. But realistically, the other things, if I was looking at positions of need, still need pass rushers because this team has been woefully devoid of pass rushers. And there's some good edge guys here that were available. Or corner. I was looking at Melanfuamu, younger brother of player the Raiders drafted, and he's sort of the prototypical, like, big-bodied, above 6 foot, a little on the heavy side, but good technical corner, who in particular is really good at playing press. And so that's a guy that I think the Seahawks could mold into a good corner. I don't expect him to fall to, I don't know, whatever the next stupid Seahawks pick is, which is, their second to last pick because the Seahawks are stupid. But, something like that. I really think the defense needs to get shored up. I think outside of offensive line, the offense is set. You've got a great running back. You've got an elite tandem of wide receivers and an amazing quarterback. I also, and I will say.
Do you have a disgruntled quarterback, though?
So that's exactly what I was going to say. I do and don't want my GM to think this way, where there is a little bit of a PR move to drafting a lineman here, right? It's I do think it's needed, and I do think the concerns of the quarterback in the fan base are warranted. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe if I make my first pick in offensive line, I can kind of kill two birds with one stone and fill a need and also be like, hey, fan base, look, we're trying. Hey, Russell, man, look, our very first pick was somebody who's going to hand you the ball and protect you. So, simmer down and hope that it works out. There's definitely some of that strategery there because I don't need a disgruntled munchkin at quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a day and age when living in Seattle was definitely such a drag, but you don't need to live directly in New York or LA anymore to be, quote unquote, a successful celebrity.
Yeah. If you're talking about the celebrity lifestyle specifically, yes, because living in Seattle, otherwise it's not a drag. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, especially, with his wife. And it's very clear that Russ wants to be bigger than the game in his own way, which is kind of a mixed blessing. But so like that star stud thing. So I could certainly understand why LA markets, New York markets would appeal to him. But, in this, work from home applies to celebrities too, right? I think it's more feasible now to, have that giant national profile like he desires, even tucked away up here in the southern tip of Alaska, which is what everybody thinks Seattle is.
Well, isn't it? No? Can't you see Russia from your window? No, out your backyard?
No, it's always raining.
Oh, no, that explains it. Plus, you had that big needle that gets in the way too, right?
Right? Exactly.
All right, good. I'd like to get former NFL general manager Randy Mueller's thoughts on the end of the draft here. Randy, in our SuperFan Super Mock draft, the Rams, Seahawks, and Texans are the three teams that don't have a first-round draft choice. Currently, the Seahawks are picking number 56 in the second round. Who in these types of scenarios, if you're the Seahawks, what are you looking for in regards to talent at this particular point in the draft?
Well, I think they've got to find a way to really get the best player they can. There's so many things that are unpredictable. Let's just say when they get to 56 on their board, I guarantee you there's going to be a couple cards on their board of players that are in their top 30. So they're going to have 2 or 3 first-round picks on their board available to them at 56. And I say that because nobody shapes their board the same way. Nobody stacks their board the same way. It's just a different flavor like we just talked about. So I think they got to take the highest rated player. I think where they have, I won't say messed up, but where they can be criticized most is they've tried to fill needs too often. They've tried to fill a running back need with a Rashawn Penny, and it's been a whiff. When they get late in the first round or early in the second round, they've got to find a way to take valued players that they have a consensus on, not one that's a reach to fill a specific niche or a need. Just my opinion.
Let's get back to Brian here as we have 2 more teams to discuss. Now, pick 57, right after the Seahawks, is the Los Angeles Rams. What are their concerns?
Well, I mean, it's a running back, right? I mean, that's what they seem to draft every year in the second and third round. I'm kidding. I really hope they don't draft a running back. That would just be silly. But you could see them maybe go with almost like because you lost Gerald Everett in free agency at tight end position. So maybe, this might be the spot where some of these other tight ends not named Kyle Pitts start coming off the board. And a guy who's not getting as much love as I think he should and would, I think, fit in that Rams offense is Kenny Yeboah from Ole Miss, transfer from Temple, 6'4", 247. Had a great week at the Senior Bowl, can block, can run, can catch. He played wide receiver some during the game because the team he was on in the Senior Bowl ran out of wide receivers. They didn't have enough left. That between people backing out of the game for injuries, he had to play wide receiver, and he handled himself well. Highly productive at Ole Miss. So I think he's a guy that fits the Rams. Even maybe not in the second round, but if he's available to them in the third round, I could see that as a target for them as well. But a tight end to replace Gerald Everett, it's probably not an immediate need. But it could help and give Stafford some other guys to throw to.
And finally, picking in the third round at pick number 67 are the Houston Texans. We have highlighted on this podcast so many things wrong with the Texans, and of course, there's the entire Deshaun Watson situation, which we are at this particular point in time just assuming he's out. At least for this particular season. It's not likely you're going to draft your quarterback of the future here in the third round. They definitely got to do something, though.
Well, the good news is they're probably going to be really bad again, and as of to my knowledge, they haven't traded away their first and second round picks next year yet. So they'll should have the opportunity if they have to move on from Watson, which that situation. I don't really want to touch on it, but it's not a good deal for anybody at this point. But your first pick is at pick 67. You're just hoping that somebody that you really like falls through the cracks at this point. I don't even know what names could be available here because I haven't done a mock draft past round 1 yet. So, but like I said, you're just hoping somebody slips that you can take. There is one player that could be available at the top of the 3rd round, and I know he would be of interest to the Bengals a few picks after they go at pick 69, but interior defensive lineman named Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech, 6'3", 284, has tremendous pass rush upside, 4'6", 740, had a 38.5-inch vertical jump for a 284-pound man. It's crazy to me. And he had a 6'9", 6'3" cone time. Tested athletic on the 99th percentile for defensive linemen. I mean, if he's available at that pick, I think you could do a lot worse than Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech.
And so, Texans, James, we come to the last SuperFan. Not only are you without a first-round draft choice, you're without a second-round draft choice. And as I talked about with Brian, I think we kind of have to assume that Deshaun Watson will not be the quarterback, at least for this season, at least until the legal situation figures itself out.
Yeah, that's kind of the assumption that I've had going in for various reasons that Deshaun Watson would not be playing for the Texans this season. I've shared my thoughts on that. It's obviously a developing story. More legal maneuverings have happened this past couple of weeks. So fair to say he will not be taking snaps game 1 for the Texans. And probably relatively safe to say that he has taken his last snap as a Texan.
So what do you do? I mean, you don't have a first round pick to address a quarterback. You don't have a second round pick to address a quarterback. You don't really have a lot of capital to move up either, do you?
No, not at all. They basically went all in. I know at the draft show last year, I was kind of questioning not just the Laramie Tunsil move, or I guess that was post-draft show, but the move to bring in Laramie Tunsil and then the David Johnson move and the Brandon Cooks move. Like they were making moves to go all in on a season that did not make sense for them to go all in on. Like they did not have the defense in place to be a contender. The year before they had just been, they blew the huge lead against Kansas City to get bumped out of the playoffs. Their playoff win that year was a squeaker over the Buffalo Bills that were playing on their backup quarterback. Like they went all in. They don't have any draft capital as a result. Whether that was because they thought they actually had a shot, or Bill O'Brien saw the writing on the wall and knew that if he didn't come out hot, he was going to be out of a job, which is the fun kind of perverse incentive of having a head coach GM combo. One is supposed to, win in the future, maintain competitiveness, and the other will lose their job if they're not, competitive immediately. So I think we still end up with like 7 picks this year. But yeah, none of them before the 3rd round, which is typically not a great round for quarterback success rate. The other complicating factor is when you go through the team needs of the Texans, it's just yes. If this was 4 years ago, the backfield of David Johnson, Mark Ingram, and Philip Lindsay would actually look pretty sweet. The sad part is that is probably our deepest roster spot. Wide receiver, yep, need those two with Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb. I think we still have Kiki. We still have Kiki. But you've lost Will Fuller. You've lost basically everybody that you've drafted in the past 4 years. The year we drafted Will Fuller, we also drafted Braxton Miller. So there was a shot to have a backup quarterback / wide receiver on the line. We lost J.J. Watt, which is yes, it's a loss from a franchise perspective. It's also a loss because our defensive line is not that good. I guess maybe the one spot that we have that we don't have to address is nose tackle, only because we addressed it last year. Maybe the linebackers are a source of relative depth, very, very relative depth. So if you're the Texans, what do you do? Not much. Maybe you continue to trade back for any team and hope to get like 12 picks and then just load up on, as you like to call them, the lunch pail guys, man. Just get as many offensive tackles or offensive linemen as you can, defensive linemen as you can. Because if you build up both the lines, that will make your secondary look a little bit better. It will make whoever ends up taking snaps at quarterback a little bit better. I saw a great tweet because the Texans did go out and get Tyrod Taylor. The tweet was basically, Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback that every fan base is excited to have, yet hates, but only because they never want to see him play. I mean, he's really gotten into some really like weird situations, whether it was here or Minnesota. It was basically like, the Bill Barnwells and the stat guys of the world love him because he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's a competent quarterback. He can do some stuff with his legs. But if you're the fan base that has to watch him, you're very disappointed because you seem kind of like stuck in a rut.
Yeah, I think, Nick Cesario's got himself a job to do for sure. And I don't even know.
Does he? He just has to say yes to Jack Easterby. How hard of a job is that?
Well, sure. That's one way to look at it. I don't even know where you start with this team. I mean, maybe because your first pick is in the third round, maybe you're going with the best player available at that particular point. But I don't know if you can focus on a position group at all. I think it's literally just taking the best players you possibly can, because we also know that the amount of contribution guys after the third round provide playoff franchises is not very high.
Yeah, it's not, but they are the guys that allow for you to go out and get the stars, right? Because if you have 6 starters that were drafted by your team for the third round or later, or even the second round or later, the fact that they're making $500K, and you have 6 or 7 starters that are making $500K, and they're just not making even $1 million salary, right? Like there's an extra $4 million in cap space, $5 million in cap space that allows you to go out and sign another high impact player, potentially even 2 high impact players. And it also creates this fun little flywheel effect where once you start a good draft process and you have that system in place where you can bring young guys in, coach them up. You see this with Pete Carroll in the secondary, or at least you did for a long period of time. Like then you don't have to address that in free agency. You know that you can find a 4th round guy or a 5th round guy, and that $500,000 that you're paying him is not a $9 or $10 million cornerback contract or a $9 million Randall Cobb wide receiver contract. Pittsburgh with their wide receivers is another great example of how you can constantly go in and they move from Antonio Brown to Juju Smith-Schuster to Deontay Johnson right now. And it's just a constant churn there, but you're always guaranteed a high level of production, or at least an above average level of production. And if you can just get that in one of your positional groups, then cool. That's an extra, $5, $6, $7 million you can spend elsewhere. Talking with the other super fans, I don't think this is an extremely deep draft as far as like executive vice presidents of football or GMs go. Unfortunately, we cannot target one of those in the third round. I really wish we could. But maybe we could trade up for one.
Well, James, as your team was the Patriots of the South for quite some time, I do hope that you can find that spot once again and be competitive. But I do think that it'll be a race between you and a certain team in New York for the number 1 pick next year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hopefully we don't trade it away between now and then. we shall see. There's only so many top 5 picks or top 3 picks you can trade away. But to your point about going best player available, I'm looking around at the various mocks, and basically everybody's throwing up their hands like, we don't really know who's going to be available in the third round. So I see like Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, going there.
He's not falling that far. Elijah Moore?
Yeah, he's
Wow.
not going to fall that far, but like in some weird pipe dream that they fall to us, or Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC. I don't think that's super plausible either. One mock even has Davis Mills, the quarterback from Stanford, falling to us. Like,
not anymore.
No, that's not going to happen. But I mean, you've got 2 wide receivers, a quarterback. I'm seeing defensive tackle, outside linebacker, another wide receiver, offensive tackle, defensive end. Cornerbacks. So the consensus is that yes, the Texans need everything. So just go best player available. That's a rather sound strategy for good teams, and unfortunately, it's also a very sound strategy for bad teams. And we are quite squarely in the latter of those.
Well, listen, if you go back and check out my all undrafted team, I mean, wide receivers and cornerbacks, you can get them undrafted. They're a dime a dozen. Just saying.
Yes. For teams that can successfully coach them up, they are a dime a dozen. I completely agree.
All right, James, let's bring in Randy Mueller here to close out the SuperFan Super Mock Draft for 2021. And I'm going to throw you the hard question here. The Houston Texans, they're not picking until the 3rd round. And let's take the real aspects of the Deshaun Watson situation out of it and look at the football. We kind of have to assume Deshaun Watson's not playing this season.
Right. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
How do you manage that? And especially with first year, Nick Cesario coming in, his first pick isn't until the 3rd round. What does he do?
Well, he's been working under that assumption since he took the job, because Deshaun has said all along he didn't want to play there anyway, right? So he's had to put him on the back burner from the day he got there, and I don't think that's changed any. Now we have to let the legal process play itself out, and I think that will be, that'll be a decision that is made above Nick Cesario's pay grade, so to speak. So we'll see. I think the one thing he has done is he has signed so many guys. He's given himself all kinds of options now in the draft. One of the theories that I always have, and I think it's been pretty productive and it's worked for me over the years, is I use free agency as a way to supplement our roster to give us options on draft day. So we didn't have to jump around and fill needs. I want to take the best available player I can, and I don't want to bypass other good players to fill needs. And I think that's what he's done. He's signed enough guys now to where he's reshaped that roster already. So he has some options now whenever that first draft pick comes up. If it's the 3rd round, so be it. There'll be some guys that he has rated in the 2nd round available in his 3rd round pick. That's just the way this thing works. So I like what Nick's done up to this point. I think he's got to build his team regardless of the Deshaun Watson situation. And he's had plenty of time to hone that plan, because he hasn't really been part of the plan from the day he got there.
I'm not saying that a team goes into a season wanting to tank. Everyone's competitive. It's a competitive league.
Right.
However, when you're in that situation in Houston and you look at sort of this year and you kind of give it you sort of look in the short term and you look in the long term and you go, look, this year's going to be a wash. Like,
right.
we just got to do what we can do to go out and win as many possible games. But at the end of the day, we don't expect much.
Right.
Is that an okay mindset to have as a general manager, or will that get you in trouble?
I think it would get you in trouble. I don't think that's Nick's mindset at all. I think he thinks he's going to have a team vying for a playoff spot, if nothing else, a wild card spot. I think he would be happy if he could put together a group that was 9-7. And it's one thing that for us to be on the outside and map out where we think they'll be. I promise you, he thinks they'll be better than that, regardless of what happens in the draft. So I think their mindset, you're right, is not to tank in any way. I don't believe in that concept. I don't think there's any NFL guys that do. I think that's kind of a creation from the outside world. I think they think they'll have a team that can compete, and he'll be pissed if he doesn't have a team that, when I say 9-7, I guess it's different now because we're talking 17 game schedule, right?
Right.
No one's going to go 9-7, but maybe 9-8 gets you in. And I think that's what his goal is. And I think that's every decision he makes is to try to make them competitive. Because then they'll be that much further ahead the following year to build off of.
This has been great. If people are interested in hearing more from you or reading more from you, where can they find you?
Well, as you've referenced a couple times, I write on my blog. It's at MuellerFootball.com. I just kind of take angles from the GM's chair. That's all I know. And so I write 2 or 3 columns in there a week for my blog, and it seems to gain a little traction. The other thing we're doing now is we do the podcast for The Athletic. It's called The Football GM. Mike Sando, The Athletic national writer, and myself known each other for years, and we do a little podcast once a week for them, and that seems to drive some listeners as well. So it's enough to keep me busy, and talking ball is really all I know. So it's been fun to hang out with you and to do those things as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Randy, so much. Really appreciate it, and hopefully our paths will cross again down the road.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It is your 2021 Superfan Super Mock Draft. Brian, thanks so much for jumping in here and providing us such great analysis on all these draft choices. If people want to check out what you have to say, more than what you've already said, where can people find you?
Well, currently right now, day by day, I'm dropping my final position rankings at deepfrieddraft.com. I just dropped a new mock draft a few days ago. And talked about some of those picks during this mock draft as well. But everything that I do is readily available at deepfrieddraft.com. Pretty much I'll have something new going up every day for the next probably 3 to 4 weeks at least. And you can always follow me on Twitter at deepfrieddraft for immediate hot takes occasionally.
Awesome. Brian, thanks again so much. And hopefully we have a chance to cross paths again down the road.
I certainly hope so. I really enjoyed it.
And so we've come to the end of the road, at least for me. I have accepted a new job that will take me away from the Next Fan Up podcast. And, the last time I did this, I basically only got to say so long and thanks for all the fish. And that will not be the case this time around. I, do hope to be back again someday, but at least for the foreseeable future, I will not be on the airwaves. I'll be behind the scenes helping podcasters do what they do. And it's really bittersweet. I am not leaving because of, the lack of super fans. As you heard, we had less than half of the super fans this year on the Superfan Super Mock Draft. But I think Brian Bosarge and Randy Mueller are great additions as voices to provide some excellent analysis. And I thank them for joining me on my last show. Man, I believe in this. I believe in this so hard. I mentioned in part 1 about the Football Today days at ESPN and how it was the voice of the player, the voice of the scout, and the voice of the fan. And having those 3 perspectives get to real insight into what the true nature of the story is. And while I didn't necessarily bring you another player or another front office person on the regular, I thought by providing the 32 voices of each team from the fans' perspective was going to give some really, really strong insights. And it really did. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that these guys put in for me. Some of them came from the ESPN days. Some of them didn't. Some of them came on as the podcast kept going. There was a lot of churn with a number of teams. We couldn't keep a Vikings super fan for I don't know what. I don't know what's wrong with you Minnesotans, but come on, get involved. Talk about football. But man, I'm gonna miss those Thursdays with Neil and James. Really, 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 really. I'm really gonna miss them. I know my wife isn't gonna miss them. But I know I'm going to miss Neil and James. I'm going to miss all of them. I'm going to miss Nick. I'm going to miss Rob. And I'm going to say names, and I'm going to miss names. And it's a terrible thing for me to do. I'm going to miss Monty, the pretend Raiders superfan. I'm going to miss Houston James, and some of the battles that we had. I'm going to miss Justin, and I'm going to miss Jordan. And I will definitely miss Greg, who we had to force into being the Pittsburgh Steelers superfan more than once. I'm going to miss MJ, especially since he traded me Matt Ryan. Thanks so much for doing that on the last show, MJ. I'll miss the intern, Ken. I'm going to miss Ben from the Cleveland Browns. Really, I wish he had been involved in this one because I know how much he loves the draft. Crazy Jared. How can you not miss Crazy Jared? Brian, Green Bay Packers superfan. He's been here since the very beginning. Special shout out to Doc, who's been a big help behind the scenes. Ryan, our Jaguars superfan. Again, miss you on this one, especially since you got the first pick in the draft. Jared, our Rams superfan. Josh, our Lions superfan, who helped out with some fantasy stuff we tried doing for a season there. I know that he's been busy doing some other fantasy stuff out there. Kevin. See, I told you I was going to forget people. Kevin. I mean, he's the reason why we play Kofi Annan at the end of the show. Patrick, our Patriots superfan. Looks like you're going to have to step back in, buddy. Get back into the swing of things. Chris, our Saints superfan. Ron, our Dolphin superfan, who came and went and came back again and went again. Matt, our Buccaneers superfan. I hope things are going well for you there, buddy. And there you go. All the guys. I'm going to miss them all. What we did on this show, no, we didn't make it. We weren't Joe Rogan. But we did provide an outlet that others saw was valuable too. You know, I've mentioned in social media, the SuperFan Super Mock Draft is the original. There was no other organization that was doing a mock draft in the manner that we were doing it. And ESPN put it up on ESPN.com, our first ever SuperFan Super Mock Draft. They put it out there and they promoted it as something extra than just the podcast. And then they noticed what we did and they went, oh, well, we have all the bloggers. Well, we'll just do it with all the bloggers. And then Fansided came around and SB Nation came around and the Locked On Podcast Network came around. And I got to believe all of that came out from what we were doing in those early days of podcasting. And I know this particular show may have only been around for 7 years, but the stuff we were doing at ESPN counts too. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that's listened to this show. And a big thank you to all the super fans. And I hope you keep listening. And I hope the super fans keep doing the show. I'm really pushing them to keep doing the show because there is real value in what it is that they provide. It's a different voice than what you will typically hear on the radio or on television. And I've got regrets. I will tell you some of my favorite shows, the ones that I'm most proud of, are the ones we did about Colin Kaepernick and about race, not only in the NFL, but in society today. I'm very proud of those shows, and I regret not being able to get the show done about the lack of minority offensive coaches in the NFL. I had a couple of guests lined up, but there were a couple of really important guests that I felt needed to be involved in that particular show. So it timing just didn't happen. And I regret that show didn't get made because I fully believe in that story. And I think it's a story that needs to be told. And if I can't get it done on this show, the place that I'm going to, I'm pretty sure can help out and make that story come to light. So that's a story that I'm not done yet with. And there's other things that I wanted to do with this show. I really loved the Tuesday show that James and I ended up doing, taking the press conference sound from all the Zoom calls. I think that was a little different. In sports podcasting right now, I think there needs to be some innovation. There needs to be more voices. There needs to be more ideas. It can't just be what we started, which is just a group of friends chatting about football. Because we're doing it. We're still doing it. And we still love doing it. But I'm looking for something more from you folks out there. So, listen, I'm sure you'll have seen on social media where I ended up. And I look forward to working at that fine organization. And I look forward to listening to more Next Fan Up with the super fans. But I am not saying so long and thanks for all the fish. Not this time. No, this time I'm just saying talk to you later. There you have it.